Hello and welcome back to the Premier Injuries channel. Today we are talking to friend of the show, James Yorke from Statsbomb. How you doing, James, today? I mean, we are in the height of the heat crisis at the moment, aren't we?
I mean, I'm all right. It's ridiculously hot. This is the hottest day in the history of the United Kingdom. What to say? You know, my brain's melted. We'll do our best here. We'll try and keep on the track and think and talk and communicate and not just flounder miserably. But it is pretty hot. I'm all right.
Well, hopefully the introduction bit, we're going to go through maybe a lightning bit, just for people that are maybe new to data, maybe new to kind of understanding how to evaluate players, maybe for Fantasy Premier League, maybe for betting, whatever people want to do with this information. But first and foremost, what would you say is the kind of best data to evaluate a striker?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Football analytics kind of analysing attackers in football analytics kind of was the year dot from it. And people talked about shots. People were interested in shot volume. And then, you know, from that over time, eventually expected goals was devised as a way to, you know, weight the value of the shots. And it, you know, obviously remains a kind of key part of the game. The currency of football is goals. So, you know, certainly when you're looking at forwards and attackers, you're always going to be interested in how they contribute towards goals, either directly or, you know, semi-directly via, you know, their creativity. Metrics like expected assist, XG assisted, as we call it, a company I work for, Statsbomb, are going to be the kind of bedrock of understanding, you know, the value of a striker. It's interesting. I always felt the suite of shot volume, expected goals, and then XG per shot. So understanding the quality of the shot that a striker was getting in particular. Those three things will always kind of give you slightly different slants into understanding what a striker is doing. You know, you can quite often get. I remember I was thinking of Sebastian Haller, who I believe yesterday was diagnosed with testicular cancer of all things. Poor guy, hope he gets well soon. But he always had a very low shot volume. And when he went to West Ham, I was a little worried that he succeeded there because he only took around 2 shots per game. But they were all high value shots, like very central. Someone like Erling Haaland's shot map will look a lot like Sebastian Haller's. And you know, so if you can get someone who gets good quality shots like Erling Haaland from central locations, he's more of a kind of like 3.25 shots per game, man. Then that's going to be pretty valuable, you know, for a striker in particular. Obviously, you know, various wide forwards, attacking midfielders and stuff, the balance between what you're interested in is going to differ. But I think the crux of how you really want to understand, you know, the player's contribution will come through the expected goal framework. But beyond that, there are other metrics. We've got a metric that we've launched relatively, you know, in the last year called on-ball value, OBV, and that gives you more of an understanding of what players do, the value of their passing. Are they passing into dangerous areas? Are they carrying the ball into dangerous areas and such like? So, you know, the quest to understand football through a data lens will never end. We always mix it up with some old-fashioned scouting and opinions, and you know, there are ever more smarter teams doing ever more smarter things to account for what they're doing, the decisions that they make. But yeah, there's a lot going on.
And just in terms of the other end of the pitch, then I think people will be interested how to evaluate a good goalkeeper as well.
Yeah, that's much harder, and that's the thing. Again, we've literally just built a model at Statsbomb where we've kind of extended out the expected goals framework so we can actually look at both the chance quality and then look at finishing from the striker's perspective and saving the ball from a goalkeeper's perspective. It's a little bit complicated to pull apart. The white paper is literally being written as I speak, not by myself, I hasten to add. But it's far more easy to understand kind of style when it comes to anything defensive. And this is an issue that kind of transcends sports. Like I know NBA basketball analysis, which is, you know, pretty well evolved and started a lot earlier than kind of the soccer stuff. You know, they still find it harder to evaluate the defensive side of the game than the, you know, kind of like more offensive side or attacking side of things. So yeah, goalkeepers, you know, there's this style as well. Obviously, are good keepers good with their feet? Can they retain possession? Are they good passers? Which is a whole kind of further aspect. I think I probably still care. Can my goalkeeper keep the ball out of the net first and foremost? But you'll probably, if you're deciding between hiring a De Gea type or an Alisson type, then you're going to really think about what they're going to bring to the broader game, and that's certainly a kind of more of a modern kind of idea of what a goalkeeper is. I think it feels like at the moment the De Gea types are falling out of fashion, and the more do everything goalkeepers are more highly valued. That may change, but it's always interesting.
And that links to XG as well. Is it the post shot expected goals minus the actual kind of goals taken into the net? Is that, would you say, a fair analysis for somebody looking, going, oh, that they're quite a good goalkeeper keeping the shots out?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Anything in regards to finishing and goalkeeping, like, can be highly fluctuate a lot. And a goalkeeper may have a really good season. They may save 10 goals, let's say, ahead of expectation, which would be very much on the high end. Most goalkeepers in the league will be within what you would expect to be a kind of a loosely described kind of expected variation. Like, if you're 4 goals ahead of expectation or 4 goals behind, you're probably kind of within the realms of bad bounces, and this is the way things can go. So can we tell if those goalkeepers are particularly good or not? It's hard. At the other end, if your goalkeeper has kind of conceded, say, 10 goals more than expectation in a given season, now the prospect of them doing so again in the following season is probably less, because they will tend to revert towards a mean. But at the same time, do you want to pay that goalkeeper to find out whether they're actually really quite bad at saving shots, or do you want to try someone else? And I think more and more we see the extremes of goalkeepers. So keepers that do really, really, really well, the very top goalkeepers tend to perform strongly season after season. People like Alisson, Hugo Lloris, De Gea in the Premier League, all tend to keep more out of the net than expectation. And at the other end, you don't very often see goalkeeper, persist across multiple seasons if they have had a particularly poor run. Obviously, someone like, I think, Claudio Bravo at Manchester City, there was one season where he couldn't get his hand on anything. Very good goalkeeper historically. They didn't persist with him. And obviously, Kepa is another really good example who had an awful time of it. And at some point, practical reasons will normally mean that you'll think, okay, you had your chance, we'll try someone else. So yeah, goalkeeping end of things is still difficult to really to effectively evaluate predictively, but there's information there that can certainly power your analysis and the decisions that people make.
We will talk about them a little bit later, but I do want to bring up maybe the example of Wolves as maybe evaluating quality of defences, because last season they massively overperformed kind of XG conceded data, but through the season they still kind of kept that up. Is that kind of an indication, maybe in terms of a total defence, of that they're quite good, or that their style is doing quite good? Or would you expect maybe a regression back to the mean, because it was a huge one? Was it kind of near 14 goals over performance or something?
Yeah, there's always a team that does this. I think, did they concede quite a lot of penalties? I'm just looking at a chart there, and I think that maybe they did. But in general, yeah, they were, what is it, something like a quarter of a goal per 90 minutes than expected in defence. Yeah, I mean, I've got them down as, what was it, 43 goals. I know that's including penalties. It's a lot. There's always one team that's going to be outside expectation, and this is, pick any league, you'll find one or two teams that are kind of like performing against expectation. Now, the tendency for people to is to actually try and understand what's going on, what's this team doing that is causing this. Now, sometimes a team maybe have a particular style that is conducive towards the success that they've had. Other times, it usually is just one of those things. And you'll normally find within following seasons that teams revert to expectations. So I would be a little bit cautious if I was Wolves fan right now because, their season was okay. It was fine. It didn't feel like they regressed after Nuno left, but in the numbers, they look like a big risk. And if they continue to put out those kind of numbers as in the season to come, they're more likely to find themselves, in the bottom half of the league, towards the bottom of the league. I think predicting a relegation battle is probably over egging the pot a little bit, but I would, there's work to do. Interestingly, Crystal Palace are a team that had really, really unimpressive expected numbers under Roy Hodgson, and I think I predicted before last season that the transition towards Patrick Vieira was potentially a risk. He managed to improve their numbers significantly, and they didn't point massively upwards, but they pointed upwards to a sufficient degree that they were never in any real threat. And he kind of plonked them safely in mid-table, and they had a fairly solid season and had the underlying numbers to back that. So you wouldn't obviously predict them to decline off the back of it.
Yeah, I mean, from Statsbomb data itself, best XG difference improvement of any team in Europe last season, Crystal Palace. But a lot of this data is available via FB Ref, so people can check it out there.